Hello, my name is Mark Taylor. Welcome to the Education on Fire podcast network. This show is sponsored by the National Association for Primary Education. Hello and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place where we share creative and inspiring learning in our schools. Hello, welcome back to the Education on Fire podcast. My name is Mark Taylor. This is a Primary Music on Fire special, and today I'm delighted to be talking to Paul Mansell, who, if you've been following our Education on Fire Facebook page, you'll have seen we've just done a 4-day ukulele challenge, which was so much fun, just getting a chance to use Paul's book, Ukulele School, and taking you through beginner ukulele lesson and the first sort of 3 or 4 songs in the book. We had a great time, and I think from the comments and the feedback we've had from people, you've really enjoyed it as well. So if you were part of that, then here's a chance to get to know Paul a little bit more. And if you didn't, you can always go and check that out. It's on facebook.com/Education on Fire. So I hope you enjoy this. This is Paul Mansell and talking about his experience and his book, Ukulele School. Hello, welcome back to the Education on Fire podcast, and this is a primary music special, and I'm here delighted to be joined by Paul Mansell, and we're going to be talking all things ukulele. We met very recently actually at the Music and Drama Expo in London, and came across Paul's book Ukulele School, and I've had a look through it. It's absolutely fantastic, and one of the things that we know, it's that beginner starting which is the most important thing when we're looking to learn new instruments and get music going in our schools. And so I thought we'd have a little chat and find out about Paul's background and how he can help you moving forward. So welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you very much, man.
So let's start exactly there. A bit of background. How did you get into playing, and exactly, you know, the range of things that you do as well? I can see as we're sat here, you've got guitars as well as ukuleles and all that kind of thing. Anything strummed, I guess, is a starting point.
Pretty much. I guess relatively, I was a late starter in today's terms. I picked up a guitar when I was 15 years and 9 months. So there's some accuracy for you. Classical guitar at school, had a terrific teacher. Luckily the school I went to was quite music focused. They had teachers come in externally to teach you, and then it was something that your parents paid for, so it was extra curricular. The actual music lessons at school were woeful. You know, we just sat and watched Beatles videos. But if you wanted to learn an instrument, it was really, really good, and there was a wide range. So I picked up the guitar just before my 16th birthday. Had a fantastic teacher who, believe it or not, is still at the same school, still teaching there 30 years later. And took to it pretty quick, actually. I'm not a natural musician, but worked pretty hard at it. Shall we say to the detriment of my A-levels? Shall we say
You focused on what it was that you wanted to do.
Thank you. Yes, what a great parental thing that is to say. I shall say that to my daughter. Luckily at school I got up to grade 8 on classical guitar. Like most kids then, you know, you're facing that sort of step into the unknown, aren't you? And I couldn't decide whether to do music at university or not. Back in those days when things were slightly more regimented, and this is about, this is 91, generally you needed another instrument at grade 5 as well, and I was okay on the flute, but I didn't have grade 5 on it. So I decided not to follow music and went off to university and did a business studies course. Always kept on with music, always kept playing throughout university, and then, like most people, ended up getting a proper job. Still always playing music, and then pretty much had a job really until I was about 30. I was in transport until I was 30, and then I was made redundant. At that stage I set up my own company, an events company, which I ran with a colleague from school. All this time I was still playing a lot of music, playing a lot of classical, playing in bands as well. I'd had a fair amount of success in bands. We'd put a record out, we'd had chats with EMI, but nothing that made it professional. It was always kind of like in the background. Then I sold that business, I don't know, about 8 years later, something like that, when I was about 38. And it didn't make me a millionaire, but it gave me a little bit of time, effectively, to think, what do I do next? So at 38, and for me then it was okay. Now we do music. At the time, I thought, well, I'll become a guitar teacher, and because I had the grade 8, and I thought, oh, I'll do a music diploma because I wanted to give some sort of legitimacy to it. So I was about to do that, and then a friend of mine, a drummer, said, "Oh, have you seen ukuleles are very popular at the moment? They're selling 250,000 in England. I think this could be a thing for you. Have you ever played one?" I said, "No, I've never played one." So I ordered one from the internet, and that one sat behind you, the bright red one.
Well, yeah.
And it duly arrived, and I think within 3 seconds I knew that was it. Just loved it. And the great thing was the ukulele was then changing quite a lot. It was going from being, George Formby playing When I'm Cleaning Windows to being a sort of semi-respected instrument. So much so that VCM, the Victoria College of Music in London, they had recently set up so that you could do a diploma on the ukulele, which at the time was, quite groundbreaking, really. So I thought, that's it. I'll do the diploma on the ukulele. I think I was the second person in England to do it, and that was great. It was hard work. It took me a year to do it. Luckily, the ukulele is very similar to guitar. The fingerings are similar, and the chord shapes are very similar. It's only got 4 strings, so it's, in some ways it's more simple. So did the diploma, got 95% on that, and got an honours, which I was really, really pleased with. And again, that for me, it sort of helped legitimise the instrument a bit, because it's always seen a bit of a novelty instrument, the ukulele. So then set up teaching guitar and ukulele. I initially taught a 5-string banjo as well, but there wasn't much demand from that. That kind of fell from grace, shall we say, the banjo replaced by the ukulele, and hit the ground running. So that's effectively 10 years ago, I think, now. So yeah, converted my garage where we're sat now. Within a very short period, I would say 6 months, had enough students to do it full time.
And in terms of, like, we've chatted just before, in terms of it sort of completely filled up your days in terms of doing that. So is it a selection of adults and children? I guess children are generally in school during the school hours. And so if you're just doing it from home, is it a selection of all sorts of ages? Yeah,
it is. You're right. I mean, most of the people in the day are retired or self-employed. So, for example, on a Tuesday, I have, I think, 7 lessons in the day. And they're mostly retired people or self-employed who can fit it around. Most of the evenings are children, but my range is from, I think my youngest student is 5. Currently, my oldest is 84. The ukulele is pretty popular with the older generation, I think, because it quite suits old-style music in many ways. And I think because a lot of people think it's a relatively easy instrument, which in some ways it is. That it attracts a lot of old people, so it's not unusual for me to get a phone call from a octogenarian. I hope to play the ukulele, and we take it from there. But yeah, I span from sort of 5 to 84. So,
and talking about that perception that the ukulele is easy or easier than guitar, I mean, it's, as we said, it's become more prevalent in schools. Is something extra, recorder, ocarina, ukulele now is a big thing. Is it the size which you think makes it good for schools? Is it the fact that it is easier, or is that just a perception, and actually they could do the same with guitar as well? It just happens to be that ukuleles captured the imagination.
That's a good question. I think it's there's several things. It's the accessibility of it, as in it's cheap to buy. So you can buy a good ukulele, a perfectly playable one, for £20. It's small, so a child can sling it in their bag. You can get going on it relatively quickly. You can be singing a song. I can have a 5-year-old playing a song within 5 minutes. I think why it's taken over from the recorder, you can do more modern songs on it. A kid might want to do Ed Sheeran or something, and okay, you can do that on the recorder, but it's going to sound more interesting to them because they can sing with it. You can't sing with a recorder. So I think it's the accessibility, the fact that you can do modern songs. little things, they come in bright colours, things like that. You know, they're fun looking things. They look a bit like a guitar. You know, you can get ukuleles in all shapes. You can get like flying V ones now, so you can look a bit like Jimi Hendrix if you want to. Or you can get Les Paul ones, so you can look like Slash with a ukulele. And that's, you know, that appeals to me, so it must really appeal to a kid. So I think that's the reason why. And with the advent of YouTube, you know, it's relatively easy to find resources.
I mean, I'm trying to think back to when my kids they had a wider opportunities ukulele thing. So that someone came in from the Music Hub and they did 10 weeks. And the thing that struck me about it when they did that was what it gave them was the ability to have a grounded musical start. Because as you said, they were singing as well as playing. They were able to develop enough technique to make it sound like they were able to produce a finished product within that age group without it necessarily feeling like this is a good starting point and then we'll move on. And of course, if they'd had another 10 weeks and another 10 weeks, then it obviously gets better and better and better. But I think that's the thing I certainly found when I've been into schools doing samba, is the fact that no matter what the ability of everyone around, as a group, you can make something sound really well, and you can actually have all those musical elements come together relatively quickly. And I think understanding that you are a performer from like the first time you start playing is something which is a really positive thing for everyone who gets involved in it.
Oh, definitely. I think, you know, no child wants to sit and read through 20 pages of a book before they can play. And one of the things that I try and do with children is if you've got a mixed ability bunch of children, then the children that initially may struggle can tap out. You know, they can tap out on the ukulele and things like that. You can do a song where half the children can do one chord. If it's a slightly complicated chord, the other half can do an easy chord. Interestingly, going back to what you were saying when you're sort of teaching samba and that, I wonder if, because I always felt with the recorder, when you learnt the recorder at school, it was always, you get good at that, and we'll give you a bigger recorder.
Yes. Yeah, you're always moving on.
You're always moving on. And I worry slightly. I don't know if you get that with bongos. Do people say, "Oh, if I master the bongos, can I have a go on the drums?" Does it?
Well, yeah. There's a little bit about the fact they always want to play the biggest thing. So actually, so my basic samba setup when I go into a school, I've got a set of surdos, which is keeping the tempo, keeping the pulse, and then we've got our ganzas and our heckers doing the scrapers and shakers. And actually, the scraping stuff is really technically difficult. Yeah. But they still want to play the more simple thing on the bigger drum. Yeah. And so I think that's just the nature of it. But because it's basically layered up rhythms, you can swap people around, and one of the things I try and do is that we're going to start on this particular group, but within the piece we can then move around, and by the end of the piece you might be playing something different, the piece will still be going. And so I guess it's a little bit like you said about some children can do this rhythm and some children can do that rhythm. If you want to layer things up, moving things around, or you know, the first time through you play this line, the second time through you play that line, or however it happens to be, there's enough sort of movability. Or if there's obviously children that are struggling with certain thing, they can get that peer-to-peer support of kind of, well, you stay looking at this, doing this person's doing exactly the same thing, and they can support you while I'm also focusing on the other groups as well. And so it has that, you can push the people that want to be pushed, and at the same time you can support those that are quite happy just to find their comfort zone, and that's the most important thing for them. I
think potentially you can't do that with recorder. I'm not down on the recorder, by the way. It's a wonderful instrument, but you know, I always felt at school, if you master this, you can get a bigger recorder. And maybe that's why you know, it's rare to see a brilliant recorder player. They are out there, of course, but you don't. And my slight fear is that with the ukulele, people will be a little bit, if I get good at it, can I move on to a guitar? Well, no, actually, you know, you can go and do a diploma on the ukulele and hire, and you know, there's people making a living out of playing the ukulele now. So it's interesting.
I mean, we've been talking about here that a lot of your lessons you're doing privately from your home, which works brilliantly. But also going forward, you have the ability to affect more and more people, and that's kind of where your books come in, and that kind of thing. So take us, how did that journey from kind of doing individual lessons in from home transfer into having this sort of big audience that's coming from that? Well,
initially, when I started teaching the ukulele, I realised that there wasn't that much classical stuff for ukulele, which again I think was, from a, I don't know if you want to call it snobbish point of view, put some musicians on. They don't want to play when I'm cleaning windows. So I fairly quickly worked out that you could play classical music on the ukulele, and I wasn't the first person to do this, but I was at the beginning of it. I can't take credit for it, but I was there quite early on. So I started transcribing works by Taraga, Cooley, people like that, classical guitar pieces to the ukulele to teach in my lessons, because I wanted to do more serious stuff on the ukulele and show what it was capable of. I ended up with, 30 pieces that I'd done this for. And I was really pleased with it, and my students, young and old, seemed to really enjoy it. Effectively, if you play them a classical piece on the ukulele, most people are like, oh wow, I didn't know you could do that. So I then thought, you know what, I think I'll self-publish this book. It could do okay, and it'd be nice to get it out there. So I knocked the book into some sort of shape, and then I thought, I'll send it to some publishers just to see how it goes, not expecting much. So I sent it to 3 publishers. One came back within about an hour saying, thanks but no thanks. Although it was a really positive response, saying, it's a great idea, but we've actually already done this, and we've got someone we're working with, who ironically, it goes full circle, and I'll come back to that in a minute. 2 other publishers came back relatively quickly and said, yeah, this seems like a good idea, we'd be interested in. So I had a chat with, it was Berkeley and Kevin Mayhew. Kevin Mayhew had the MD, Dave, who you met at the show, actually. Really great guy, drummer. There you go, great guy. And he sort of got what I wanted to do with it instantly. And they had the benefit, they have a record label and a recording studio as well, so it was sort of all encompassing. And after initial chats, they said, well, look, we'll bung you in the studio and you can do an album as well, which was, to me, it was like, whoa, great. So we did that. So we put the album out, the ukulele album, and we did the classical book, which comes with an album. So this is effectively the first book was 20 classical pieces for ukulele, and that was launched a year and a half ago now. So, and that was received well, because obviously that's still a niche area. But it's done well and continues to sell well, actually. And from that, they obviously knew that I was doing a lot of teaching. And they then said, how would you feel about doing a book for children? I said, yeah, I'd love to. I said, what I'd really like to do is a book for really young children, and specifically for primary school teachers. So I started working on a book for that. Took a long time to knock it into shape. Initially, when I did it finger picking style, picking melodies out and that. And I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, Mark, it wasn't instantly accessible. The more I got into it, the more I could see children getting it, but not quick. And for young children, you must understand this. They want something and they want it now.
Yeah.
So we got our heads together at Kevin Mayhew, and they'd had great success with a book called Red Hot Recorder by Sarah Watts, fantastic recorder player. Great book. I think it's the biggest selling recorder tutor out there, actually. Very well known in schools. And that gives kids instant access to playing this. So they said, let's do it like that. They said, go away, write 12 pop songs for kids that they can do straight away. So that's what I did. Went away, wrote 12 sort of pop songs, starting with just 1 chord songs. It's actually fairly difficult to write a 1 chord song. In many ways, it's a lot harder than writing something with 6 chords in. So it'd be like me saying to you, I just want a solid 4/4 beat, and that's it. And then it'd be really, really hard. So wrote the 12 songs, and then wrote the book as well. Gave it to them, and they sort of knocked it into some shape, made it really colourful. We recorded all the songs with professional musicians and me, down at their recording studio in Suffolk. And then we launched that about 4 weeks ago. And it's aimed specifically at teachers who maybe can't even play the ukulele, but to get them encouraged to teach children. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but one of my friends, when he was taking the mickey out of me for being a music teacher, he said, the problem with your job is You only got to be one lesson ahead of the child. That's all you need to be be a music teacher. And whilst I took great offence at that, it is partly true. So whilst I don't particularly advocate anyone, teaching music, because there is a skill to it, at the same time I do, because if it gets kids involved and active, and like we were talking about earlier, it's difficult in schools now to have musician teachers, isn't it? Often it's like you said, it's what is it, the person who runs out of the door last or whatever.
And I have to say, one of some of the things which have made the biggest difference for me is the fact that I actually learned the trumpet because there was a show that was going on, and a friend of mine was doing it, and it was Threepenny Opera, and the original orchestration is drums doubling trumpet.
Right.
and he said I might need a depth for this. Do you fancy it? It's in like a year's time. So I went, got some lessons, found out all about it, did some practice. And my daughter then seemed to like the idea that this trumpet was around, and she was at primary school at the time, and there was brass lessons available, so she signed up. And but the point of this is that we learnt together. I wasn't yes, I'm a musician, but I wasn't a trumpet player. And there was something very nice about, well, I've tried this and this worked, and we can try this together. And when we were playing, it sounded like two beginner trumpet players. But it was really fun. And while I could, as a musician, I could teach her to play the drums as a professional musician and a teacher, if that's what she wanted. There was something very nice about doing it together, because that's where we happened to be. And so I'm sort of thinking, going back to your idea of teachers in schools teaching it. If you're a ukulele player, then you can do it anyway. But if you're not, there's something about the learning things together which has a very special relationship that you bond with your pupils at the same time. And I think if that's where you are, I think it's a very positive thing rather than thinking it as a negative.
I haven't actually thought of it. It's a really good point. I totally agree. I think why not? The teachers then will enjoy it as much as the children, and maybe not even see it so much as teaching, but learning an instrument themselves. Really, I think with children it's always good to give them guidance, so that if they have the adult guidance, but children pick things up so much quicker than we do. Don't they? Their brains are like sponges. I could see after a while the children would be saying, "Oh, sorry, sir, miss, you're actually doing that wrong.
Exactly.
Have you thought about doing it this way?"
A little bit like, "Oh, the whiteboard's not working. You're in year 6, would you mind going to sort it out for me?" And you see that quite a lot. And one of the things that I really liked when we were at the Music Expo was the fact that it's all encompassing, in as much as you have the book which takes you through from, you said, that really beginner step all the way through, but actually the Music Hub service they've got with it as well, where you've got videos of you playing it, explaining the instrument and that kind of thing. That's a really great package to have then, isn't it, to be able to see it as well as hear it and read the music and all that kind of thing together.
So the book is standalone on its own. It comes with a CD with the song, so anyone can pick it up and either teach themselves, or the aim is that they will teach it in primary schools. It follows national curriculum and all that. But then there's the addition of the Music Hub, where if you sign up to that, you get videos of me explaining what the chords are and going through it. So again, if the teacher in the class isn't 100% sure, they can just put the video on and they can learn as well. And it comes also with lesson plans, because we wanted to make it as easy as possible, in effect, for the teacher, because teachers, they have a lot of work. They're bogged down with paperwork, and the thought of them having to do lesson plans and that, if we can just get them up and excited, they think, that bit's done, I can just encourage the kids, and within 5 minutes have the kids singing a song. Every day when I pick my daughter up from school, the kids come out and they're so excited. If they've had a music lesson, they've sung a song. That's what they want to do. I mean, you were saying earlier that the sense of achievement of them actually being involved and making something that sounds good. So the Hub's a great thing as well, and I think Kevin Mayhew there are aiming to unify what schools are doing, because I think a lot of schools at the moment are just jumping on YouTube and finding videos, and that's great because it's interactive and that, but at the same time we all know the danger that brings when it slips onto the next video or something like that. So the aim with the Music Hub is that it's a safe place where people can go and they have access to ukulele lessons. The book that I referred to earlier, Red Hot Recorder, is on there, and there's videos for that. And then there's songs that they can listen to as well. They don't have to worry about, PRS. They don't have to worry about what song's going to come up next, things like that. So yeah, it's all encompassing.
Yeah, and we've been given permission because they at the moment they've got a 3-month free trial which I've got access to, and they very kindly said that within our Primary Music on Fire membership site we can actually show some of that so people can get an idea of exactly how that works, and then of course if they want to sign up for their membership as well, then like I said, they've got access to all of that, which I think is a very positive thing. We're going to be doing a little bit of video recording as well in a moment. So what we're going to do is we wanted to sort of give you the opportunity, if you wanted to see exactly how to get going with the ukulele, how to hold it, some of the initial things which are actually involved in this Music Hub video idea as well, but just to give you that sort of beginner starting point, which then if you wanted to go away and get hold of the book as well, you've effectively got Paul giving you your first beginner lesson, right? from a beginning starting point. So you would have seen him, you'd have heard him, you understand what he's talking about, and then you've got all the resources you need to move forward, and hopefully that'll be a very supportive thing for you if you're just starting ukulele or if you just need some extra resources within your school. Thanks very much for chatting. It's been really so glad we bumped into each other. And it turns out that we've actually also got a mutual friend in common as well. And this is a very small world, but it's been lovely finding out about you and exactly what you're doing, and look forward to finding out some more.
Great, thanks for your time, Mark.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you think we can help you, whether you're a school teacher, whether you're homeschooling, or you want to know more about music generally, go to educationonfire.com/membership and you can find out more information about what we have to offer. And the most important thing is our community and the fact that we want to support you and enabling children to be fully included in music. That's educationonfire.com/membership. Thanks for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information of each episode and to get in touch, go to educationonfire.com. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.